Hi there. My name is Avi, he, him. I'm a member of the Bronx Upper Manhattan branch of New York City DSA, and I'm excited to be participating in this year's virtual conference on religion and socialism. I have a brief presentation on the Jewish Shabbos or Shabbat and the struggle to realize its radical political significance. Now, Shabbos, as you may know, is a day of rest, and it takes place once out of every 7 days. Beyond that, our tradition tells us that it is 1/60th of the world to come, which is to say it's the tiniest taste of a messianic age within this world. So the question that I want to explore is, what can essentially taking a day off show us about liberation and redemption? Now, first of all, Judaism is a social religion. So the Shabbos does not take place at the level of an individual. It takes place at the level of a society. So as such, 1 day off per week is a kind of labor policy, a potentially liberatory labor policy. This is made most clear in this quote from Deuteronomy, which I will read. Keep the Sabbath day to hallow it, as the Lord your God has charged you. 6 days you shall work, and you shall do your tasks. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall do no task. You and your son and your daughter, and your male slave, and your female slave, and your ox and your donkey, and all your beasts, and your sojourner who's within your gates, so that your male slave and your female slave may rest like you. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. So the Shabbos here is presented in the setting of the social relations and the relations of domination of its time, which include the master-slave relationship. And it tells us that as a kind of reminder of the principle of liberation, slaves also get the day off. So this is key, and this logical expression of "so that" is what I want to dwell on, because giving the master the day off does not necessarily imply a day off for the slave. Indeed, quite the opposite. Leisure for the master in general means the displacement of their labor onto their subordinates. So in order to imagine and to construct an institution of rest that actually means a true cessation of labor and not its mere displacement, we need to kind of build society around that hope. We need to create collective institutions that permit not only the master, but also the slave to rest. And it's in creating those institutions that we create a possibility for redemption. So let's explore that more. You shall do no task. So what is a task? Well, the Jewish legal tradition, or the halacha, tells us that it's not actually just pausing what you do for pay, or in other words, it's not staying home from work, because of course, home and work are not necessarily always opposed. Outside the sphere of waged employment, there are other activities of labor which take place throughout our life. And along with those activities of labor become the potential for their domination. So the halachic definition of labor is basically a list of activities which are considered intrinsically constructive and therefore laborious. And those include many of the mundane activities of the household, lighting fires, cooking, cleaning, laundry, mending clothes, what have you. So Shabbos happens not just as a ban upon the workplace activities, but also within the household, therefore affecting the terrain of gendered labor and gender relations, potentially in a disruptive liberatory way. Though, as you can imagine, for the most part, throughout history, has not had that disruptive liberatory effect within the patriarchy. Indeed, the sad truth is that throughout history, Shabbos has not had the leveling effect which we hope it to have. So I want to talk about what our goals are as a religious left, and specifically within the observant Jewish left. So today, Jewish culture and institutional life is strongly exclusionary to the poor and working classes. It's expensive to participate in Jewish life, to be a part of a Jewish school, to raise a Jewish family, to keep kosher, and to keep Shabbos. So as members of the Jewish left, we're in this kind of long-term uphill battle to make it possible for poor and working class Jews to participate, to bring them back into the fold. And in order to do that, we need to create those institutions of solidarity and support for keeping Shabbos. And this is actually, we're doing worse within the kind of liberal or not ultra-Orthodox Jewish world because the Shabbos is generally seen as a matter of personal choice. So it's therefore confined to that sphere. And it's not thought of as an obligation for Jews to take care of each other and to make it possible to observe Shabbos. Now, outside of these kind of internal political dynamics within the Jewish community, of course, as the labor movement has lost ground over decades, that has had its effect on working class jobs. And, if you have a job in the service industry, good luck keeping Shabbos. That's a real challenge. Whereas on the flip side, if you're a capital owner, or if you manage your own time, it's much easier. So that's created a lopsided effect on who's able to participate in Jewish life and the Shabbos. And I'll also say, as an aside, that it's surprisingly difficult within the nonprofit world as well. And many of you who are watching this, who might be community organizers professionally, know that working on the weekend is a really important part of the job. So I want to bring everyone to this challenge. My conclusions are as follows. First of all, the Shabbos as an idea can provide an inspiration for radical movements. Aside from being a labor policy, it's also an environmental policy, and encourages us to take a break from constantly exploiting the world, and to challenge the constant impulse of capital to ceaseless growth, ceaseless movement. But Shabbos is more than a radical idea. It is an existing practice. And like any cultural tradition, it is a site of struggle between the reactionary elements of that culture and the forces of liberation. So whether you're within the observant Jewish left or whether you're within the religious left more broadly, I invite you to take part in this struggle. Will the Shabbos of the future exist as a kind of oasis of privilege? Or can we build it as a kind of cross-class practice of solidarity that disrupts domination and capitalism? So I encourage members of the of the conference, participants in the conference, to learn more about the Shabbos and about what can be done to realize its liberatory potential.